Good evening, everybody. This is Robin with another edition of Horror Pop After Midnight. And my guest tonight he's a camera operator, a director, a musician, BJ McDonnell. How's it going, BJ?
Going good. How you doing?
Hey, thank you for coming on and having a little fun with me tonight.
Yeah, no problem. Hanging out. It's raining in California, so I'm just hanging out inside my house.
Hey, I feel for you guys over there. I grew up out in California, and I have friends out there too, and they were talking about the rain and the mudslides and all that crazy stuff, and I'm glad you're safe out there, so yeah.
Yeah, it's been pretty intense. So the rain's been a bummer, but the snow in the mountains is worth the snowboard, so come on.
Oh, that's right. Go snowboarding in Big Bear or Tahoe, right?
Oh, man, Mammoth, baby. We're going Mammoth.
Good old Mammoth Mountain. I remember those good old days when I was growing up in California, growing up on Mammoth. Boy, those brought some great memories. All right, Let's talk about Studio 666. You directed that film, and you got to work with the Foo Fighters. So when you were directing that film, did you have free reign on how you were directing it and how to make the Foo Fighters do what you wanted them to do in the film?
Yeah, I mean, the thing was, when I met with Dave and everybody, like, it was really his concept and his idea. I just added it to, like, I wanted to put more elements into it, like the backstory of, like, the band that got killed. Like, originally in the script, there was no shadow people. There was no Dream Widow, spirits that kind of, like, were cursed within the house doing, Greg Knoll's bidding. So I added those to the story, and I also, like, always wanted to kind of give a throwback to, like, movies that I love, like The Fog. That's, like, the main inspiration we had when we did the shadow people. But when me and Dave were talking, I said, look, we have this script, we're trying to make a movie. It's like as silly as the old Foo Fighters videos they are. That was our whole concept, was we just want to make a silly, fun, good time movie. It's like our rock and roll high school, you know what I mean? Like something a band movie hasn't done in a long time, and have fun with it, and just like, cheesy good time. So, when it came down to directing the Foo Fighters and those guys, we basically we have the script, we have the dialogue. As long as we follow the storyline and we make sure they say the exact things that need to be said to make sure the movie stays on track, great. But I wanted it to be more real and have it more of like who they really were. So we do it, but I'd say just, all right, well, how would you guys actually, if something like this was happening, what would you say to each other in real life? And we'd let them riff and do like more of like what they were doing. So that way we got more of a real response and a real feel for who they really were as a band, and how they kind of really relate to each other in like the most ridiculous, concept and story that we have of pure death and mayhem. That's how we did it.
Yeah, that was a very, insane film. I also liked some of the photography shots on the certain scenes you did, which really played out the film like pretty good to the T.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing with anything I ever do. It's just like, because I'm also a camera operator and I work directly with other directors and I work also with cinematographers, and I take everything from every job and learn, I always learn, and I'm always still experiencing new things and learning from, new tricks of the trade and learning new framing and ways of making stories through the lens itself. And my whole goal in anything I ever do is to try to make it look bigger than anything it really is. Even if we do have a decent budget, make it look even bigger. Like set it up so it looks like it's a huge movie if you can. And that's like, I always take pride in doing that and trying to make sure we get the most out of like what we're doing within, the lens itself that also portrays a story. You motivating camera moves when you need to, not just to move the camera, just to make it dynamic. Actually tell the story through a camera move. Those kind of things.
So in Studio 666, when you were directing and filming the Foo Fighters in that horror film, what was some of your favorite stuff you added into the film that you really enjoyed, that really looked good behind the camera, that you thought that really made it authentic?
I just always liked the fact that always having like the deep background, like having like shallow focus, and also just making like very interesting shots. So it's not shot like a TV show, like low angles and high angles and just cool stuff. I did a lot of stuff where in the script, we had this book that meant a lot about how to, extract the demons. In the script, you only kind of saw that book once in the story, then it kind of went away. And I kind of rewrote the ending where it made more sense to be more about the book, and why the book in the end is the reason of how they actually, the sacrifice feeds the book. That actually wasn't in the script, and I reincorporated that and made it more about the book of how to like turn everything around and try to get rid of the spirit of Greg Knoll. There's a lot of cool stuff we did. I loved like the chainsaw scene with Rami and Whitney. That was a huge throwback for me. I wanted to basically, I said, what I want to do here is I want to try to make as gory and bloody as the scene from Nightmare on Elm Street 1 when Johnny Depp gets pulled into the bed and the blood goes over the ceiling. I knew I probably wouldn't accomplish that great feat because we didn't have a set that was upside down. But, I mean, we had a pretty amazing amount of blood shooting up into that set. And, I took pride in that. So there you go.
Hey, I love good movies with good blood and gore, and like I said, I'm a fan of cinematography. When I watch films, I like to look at how they pan shot it, how they did it certain angles, and how on certain scenes they would use the camera like one of the characters in the film to bring that certain scene, to life.
Yeah, well, being behind the camera, it is about telling the story through the lens, and trying to make it, as great looking as you possibly can make it. That's the whole thing. Before anything I ever direct, I always pre-plan. I shot list. If I have time to go to the sets on the weekends by myself, I'll sit there with the script and I'll just have my phone and I'll take pictures of like what I want to do. That way, when I get to set, we're actually not going, oh, what do we do? I have no idea. Let's put a camera over here. No, it's like totally planned out where you just, you know what you're doing. Okay, we got that cool big wide shot. Dave's flying through the air. He goes in the pool. Okay, now let's move on. Let's get the crane. Let's go over the pool, do dramatic certain moments in the dialogue. It's all about the pre-planning and making sure that you know what you're doing. And it also helps with the crew because then the crew knows what they're doing and we actually can make our day, because that's the thing. Time's your worst enemy on sets. And you're looking at your watch. When you step in there, the clock's ticking, and you can't sit there with your crew for like hours past when they're supposed to go home and expect them to be happy and do a good job with you. You want to try to make sure that they can get home to their families too, while you're also making sure you can make your schedule. So I think pre-planning is a huge, it's a huge thing you want to do when you're directing a film to make sure that you're getting what you want. You have a plan, but you're also making sure that the crew's happy and that a happy crew is going to work a lot harder to make a film that they're fully invested in and happy with than a crew that comes in that are pissed off because they did a 14-hour day and, didn't get to see their family.
So how satisfied was Dave Grohl with your work after you finally filmed Studio 666?
He was great. Yeah. I mean, we're very happy. We still talk all the time, and he's just an awesome collaborator. That's the thing. He's just a great guy. What you see is what you get, when you see him. So, and I still talk to all the guys, still keep in touch with them, through text and things like that. They're just really good guys. They're just the best. When you see sometimes people have a certain persona that you see, but in the real world, it's not what they are. These guys are exactly what you see, and they're just a lot of fun. They make you feel warm and that you're always been a part of their pact for, when you first meet them. They're great.
Now, let's talk about how you got involved with Slayer and directed some of their videos. How much fun was directing some of those videos from Slayer and making those videos look pretty good on the camera?
Well, that was fun because I met with Nuclear Blast and they were looking for a horror director that, to do something with Slayer. And I got the call and I was like, well, look, I'll come and meet you guys. I have nothing, since it's such a late call, I don't have an idea or anything, but I'll come in and tell you what I think. So I ended up going to Nuclear Blast Records and talking to Gerardo over there. And I said, here's the thing. All the Slayer videos that I see on YouTube or the things that came out on MTV back in the day were just like performance videos, and they never really said Slayer to me. You know what I mean? Like when I hear Slayer, I want to see like insanity. I want to see like, I want to see like chaos, blood guts, shit like that. Like it's always like very dark. The music's very, very dark, and that's what I feel when I hear Slayer. I love Slayer growing up. So I said, here, let me do this. Let me write you 2 videos. So I wrote one that was a bigger budget one, and I wrote one that was a smaller budget one, just so they had the options. I said, MTV's not around anymore. Now we have YouTube. And now we have YouTube. We can actually make a video that can say Slayer, that can actually be Slayer. And so I wrote 2 very gnarly videos that were very violent, very graphic, and with the lyrics they gave me, and they let me hear the song, I wrote a video to that. And so that's where the video for Repentless came from. And once we did that video, that came out the same day that their album dropped, and they were so happy because that video really did help with like the visual, the song, and the song and the albums, that Gerardo said, hey, Slayer wants to keep doing videos. Can you write a prequel and a sequel to Repentless? So I had to take the video I conceived. It was very simple. And then I had to make a storyline out of that. And making a storyline out of a music video where there's no dialogue, you really have to tell the whole thing through emotions and through the music's portrayed. And Slayer is the soundtrack to these videos. It takes you from the journey from beginning to end. And everything that you see that's character driven is all conveyed through facial expressions, through emotion. And so I really enjoyed doing that, and like really kind of like telling a story that was just visual, but led along with the score and soundtrack of Slayer.
Since you're like directing films, have you ever thought about writing your own script and directing and writing your own film?
I'm right now in the process of doing a concept for a film that I want to do. That's very, I can't talk about it because it's all in the phases of the writing. But I am right now. It's funny because all day I've been working on this, and I'm probably for the next 2 weeks going to be doing it, because then I want to give it to my agents over at UTA, and then I want to present it to studios and see if I can develop it. But it's a very cool movie, and it does involve heavy metal, and it's not what everybody would think. It's not your run-of-the-mill movie. When you hear heavy metal, you think it's going to be this. It's not that. And it's going to be really cool. I can't go into the story. I wish I could, because then I give my story away. Sorry.
Okay, I'll ask one question about the movie. Is it going to be very bloody?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, that's all I need to know, because heavy metal and horror and blood are the perfect combination for a great horror film.
It really is, and people don't utilize that enough. I sometimes see things I see movies that try to take the heavy metal thing, and it always feels like someone that did that. Like, to me, it just feels like, did this person actually listen to heavy metal, or is it just like they like the whole like look of it and this and that? So I feel like someone like like in my world, I love all this stuff. So I feel like if we can make it more real and really dive into a cool metal script and have it all backed by a really killer soundtrack.
That's pretty cool. So since the movie you can't talk about, once you get it done and filmed, are you going to like show it around like at independent horror film festivals too?
For me, this is a movie I actually want to have a studio back. I want this to be a theatrical studio film. Look, you never know what's going to happen. This movie could be an independent, it could be whatever. But for the one I'm writing right now, it's more studio driven, and I want to make it more of that kind of a feel, so it can actually be in theaters. It's going to be more of a bigger spectacle. It's not going to be so much of an indie kind of film. That's the whole vibe of it, But you never know where it's going to go. That's the thing. In the writing phase, you're like, I'm going to make this movie the way it is, but sometimes, it depends on who wants to fund it or who wants to take the project on, and the budget really can determine how big or how small your movie can go. I'm writing it to be as big as I possibly can make it, because I feel like that would be a better story. But of course, you never know what happens depending on, where or who buys it or who wants to take on the project.
Since you're writing and all that, do you have any actors in mind who you would love to play in your film?
I'm not even going to go into detail. Again, this is all under wraps, and that's the whole thing. It's in the very beginning phases of stuff. So, that's all I can say about it right now. I can't really go too much further into that.
Hey, it didn't hurt. It didn't hurt to ask.
Of course. Hey, no, of course.
You're also a musician as well. Do you play any bands at all or anything like that?
Not anymore. It's funny because that was like such a lifetime ago. It's funny because you can actually see my old Ampeg right there, my bass cabinet. And I was in a punk band in the 90s. That's what I did before I did film. And that's actually my bass rig that I used to tour with my old band back in the day. And it's just so nostalgic. I can't get rid of it. It still works. It still sounds awesome. But I just, I don't really play anymore because it's too hard for me to find time to actually, a band is a family, and then when you have a film, it's like a film family. Mm-hmm. And and when you have an actual family, like, my wife, you really got to pick and choose where your priorities are.
Yeah.
And it's really tough because it's already hard enough to like try to make sure that my wife gets, attention and that we actually spend time together, because the film schedules of things are so hard and so demanding, and the hours are so long that you end up having to, once you start on the film, you're with that family for a while, and your wife and your kids, hardly ever get to see you. So if I was to try to involve a band, a film career, and and my wife, one, probably be divorced. My wife would be like, I'm tired of this. And, two, it'd be really tough to keep the career going. And then your band is going to go, hey, we need to practice. And you're like, well, I got to work. And they're like, well, sorry. That I tried it when I first came out here. I was in a band called Killola for a little while that I think they're still playing. And they were really fun, but I couldn't go practice all the time. I couldn't go and meet up with them. And I played with them for probably 2 years, and it just got too hard. And then here I am. Now I'm just all film.
Yeah.
I'm performing on stage. I miss live shows. I miss that whole feeling. And I miss like opening for other bands or being the headliner. That was there's no feeling unlike, you can't even portray what the feeling is like when you're up there performing live on a stage musically, and the crowd's going wild, and the energy that comes off of the crowd that fuels you. I think that's why bands that are older stay younger, because it's this energy. You take the energy in. It's like why Metallica, they're still rocking out, and Iron Maiden, and bands like that, the Rolling Stones. I mean, it's all the energy you get from the audience. It keeps your youth.
Yeah, let's talk about you being a camera operator, and you've worked on a lot of great films and projects. I mean, especially the Salems Lot TV series, which is coming out.
It's a movie. It's not a series.
Oh, I thought it was going to be a series, but it's going to be a movie? Okay. Mm-hmm. How'd you get involved with that?
So I was lucky enough to really kind of get involved with James Wan and a camp over there. I met them on The Nun and on the Conjuring movies and those things. I met Gary Doberman, who directed and wrote most of those movies over there, and I ended up doing Annabelle 3 with Gary. And then Gary actually he wanted to do Salem's Lot. And so I got brought on that project because of that. And it's kind of cool because I had this action figure, this very rare action figure of Barlow that and when we were doing Annabelle, I knew he was trying to get Salem's Lot going. So I had two of them. So I came in the last day and I was like, it's like, congratulations again. I hope Salem's Lot happens. I wanted you to have this. And I gave him a Barlow action figure. He was like, this is the coolest thing ever, because there was only 30 of them made. And I had two of them, so I just gave it to him. And we've been friends ever since. Gary Doberman's the coolest dude ever. So that's how I got involved. And then, also the cinematographer, Mike Burgess, who's a good friend of mine, and he shot Annabelle 3, and we, worked on The Nun together, the first one. And, because we did all the reshoots here. Maxime Alexander did The Nun, most of the movie, The Nun over in Romania. But then we did all the reshoots here in LA, and that's how I met Mike Burgess. And so it was just it's a cool family. That whole, the New Line, Atomic Monster family, it's just a bunch of, really, really great guys.
That has to be great to be able to, work for James Wan, because when James Wan does his films are pretty golden.
I love James. I always tell people, be like, hey, should I go to film school? Should I go do this? I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, film school is cool and all, but, what you're going to learn the most on is if you actually go work in the films. To me, I don't think spending money at a film school is actually worth it if you want to be a crew member. If you want to be a crew member, one, if you want to be a director, save the money that you were going to pay for film school and go make a short film. That's what I would suggest. That's what I wish I would have done. I went to film school and I got a degree, but no one ever asks me about my film degree. I don't even know where it is. I have a college degree in film. Who knows where that is? Anyways, the best thing to do is go work on a movie set, because then you really get to see and learn from the cinematographers, the directors, and you can also. And some people say, "Oh, I started as a PA, but I really thought wardrobe was cool, or I really thought doing makeup effects is really awesome." My wife's a makeup effects artist, and she was doing beauty makeup, and then she got into makeup effects, doing the special effects stuff, and she loves that. So you can really kind of guide your path and where you want to go. And I think that's the best thing you can do is just get on a film set and learn.
So, what got you in falling in love with horror and then leading you into filmmaking? What drew you into the world of horror and then towards filmmaking as a director?
I want to say just my I was a latchkey kid growing up. You know, my grandfather was an old actor in Hollywood, and so growing up and going to California and going to film sets with him and seeing like the movie magic stuff as a kid, I thought was amazing. But my parents, you know, like they would basically, you know, they worked all the time. You know, they both were very, you know, hardworking people. And at that time, as I was growing up, HBO was like just starting. So HBO was starting to show all these horror films. And as a kid, and my parents would leave and go like, they were either working or they'd go see their friends and leave me and my sister at home. We're like, all right, let's put on HBO. And then all of a sudden I'd see movies like The Fog or like, you know, The Thing or these movies would come on that I fell in love with, Escape from New York, you know, like all these films that like kind of like at a young age, I thought were so fantastic by watching them that it really like kind of molded me into like, this is the kind of films and the things that I like to do, you know, and I'm not just a horror guy. I'm actually more of an action guy. I like action movies much more, but I love horror, you know, but it's like, if you can give me a good sci-fi horror action movie, I'm in. You know, I'm not your romantic comedy type of dude, you know, so those are the movies that draw me because they're really and truly more like an amusement park ride. And that's what I want to go on. You know, it's leaving reality and having fun and escaping reality. And I don't want to watch a drama. It's like, we already have enough hard things in life that are going on around us. You know, why would I want to do that? Show me something where it takes me out of reality and I can actually have fun with it or be scared, you know, or be excited or things like that. That's kind of like how I was molded, you know, watching HBO and watching these old cool movies, like, you know, Die Hard and Raiders of the Lost Ark was like one of the first movies my grandfather took me to go see in the movie theater. I'll never forget seeing the Paramount symbol, and then all of a sudden it turns into the mountain, and I'm like, wow, that was so cool, you know. And that's kind of how I got molded into what I like nowadays.
That's the same with me. I got molded, you know, watching HBO and also watching back in the 80s Joe Bob Briggs Drive-In Theater on the movie channel. This is way before Monster Vision, way before The Last Drive-In, and that's what introduced me into the more of the exploited grindhouse type of horror films too, which really blew me mind, especially like the original Evil Dead. That really blew my mind.
I never saw the original Evil Dead before I saw Evil Dead 2 first, and I was like, and I only did that because of the poster art. And I remember going to like the video stores, which is kind of a bummer that kids and people don't get to do that now, where you actually like got excited to go with your family to like Blockbuster, and you'd walk through all these sections and you'd see new arrivals and this, and then you'd see this cover art, and you had no idea what this movie was actually about. You just thought the cover art was cool. So I'm like, I'm going to watch this because this thing's cool. And I see this skull with eyes looking at me, and I'm like, what is this Evil Dead 2? And I got it, and instantly I was a huge fan of Raimi, and I was like, this is like the coolest freaking like horror film I've seen in a long time, because it kind of broke the mold from like the same old like the Jason Voorhees, you know, and the Michael Myers and those things. Because I mean, and I enjoy those movies, but it's the same repetitive thing. And when you got something that was new and exciting, I always welcomed that, and I thought it was cool. Freddy Krueger was always my guy. That was my horror guy that I would go to, because one, but what's scarier than not being able to go to sleep? That sucks. I love sleeping. Two, he's gonna kill you in your freaking dreams. You know, so it's so scary, and he's gonna talk shit to you before you die, or he's gonna say some joke, or he's gonna prey on something you're afraid of. Horrifying, absolutely horrifying. I always felt like I could run as fast as I could run away from Michael Myers, and you know, Jason Voorhees is like, well, just get in the car and drive away. It's cool.
Hey,
he always seems to get you.
Yeah.
Get you.
I'm like you too. I'm a big, huge action film junkie too. You know, like from, you know, Escape from New York. You know, the Die Hards. I love all those films too, which is pretty good. Now, another thing I like about action movie that's really coming out, you're working on, is you worked on The Fall Guy with Ryan Gosling. What was that like?
It was amazing. It was an awesome experience. You know, I am a huge fan of David Leitch and his movies, and 87 North and his wife Kelly, super cool producer. And for me, it's a lot of these jobs, like I said, it's one of those things where I sometimes enjoy getting the job because I get to work with people that I look up to and I get to learn from them. And even at my age now, still as a director, camera guy and everything, it's always a learning experience for me. And it's also the business and the people connections you make. And so going on The Fall Guy, I was like, well, you know, you're always rolling the dice on a film set. They're either going to hate you or they're going to love you, you know, and luckily it was a great experience with them. And I still am really stoked to be a part of like knowing the 87 North people. I'm hoping to do something with them someday, you know, because I really like the movies they put out. And Ryan Gosling was awesome. You know, he felt like a total like cool dude to hang out with. Like he was down to earth, very nice. Like loved talking to him. We talked about the werewolf and all that stuff when he was supposed to do that. And you know, we just had a great time shooting the movie. We got to do really great stunts, and I can't, you know, obviously I can't tell you. I've signed NDA, so I can't talk about like what it's all about. But you know, we had a really good time making it, and I think that, you know, for me, I was also a huge fan of the Fall Guys TV show. I loved it growing up. And when I got the call and Jonathan Sella, the director of photography, was like, yeah, we're doing this movie called The Fall Guy. I go, are you talking about Colt Seaver's Fall Guy? He goes, you know that? I'm like, dude, I grew up loving Colt Seavers. I love the Fall Guy. It's a stunt man, you know, who basically solves crimes. You know, it's kind of like the coolest thing ever. And there it was. So, you know, what I also enjoy about some of the things I've done is the fact that I've got to relive some of my childhood moments, like it comes full circle, like doing the Rob Zombie Halloweens, where I'm actually shooting the same scene where Michael Myers has the ghost outfit on with the glasses and kills somebody. And I'm sitting there going, I grew up loving this stuff. You know, I got to work on the new Nightmare on Elm Street. Well, not new, it's been out for a while, but I did the reshoots of that here in LA. And I was like, this is so cool that I get to be a part of seeing things like this. Fall Guy, love the TV show. You know what I mean? Like, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And so there's a couple moments like that in my life, and a couple people and heroes, you know, that I've met. And there's also people that I wish I never would have met that used to be my heroes. And I go, I never want to see that person ever again. That's this business. I won't name names. Don't even ask.
Yeah, I feel you as well. I grew up watching The Fall Guy too, and I know you can't get into detail and all that. All I have to say is they better have a Lee Majors cameo in there, damn it. They got to have Lee Majors. That's all I have to say.
We'll have to find out.
Yeah, hey, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, seems like you have a pretty fun career, man. That's awesome. You got to work with some big names, and you got to work with some of your legends, and that's great.
The thing is, I always, you know, like I always tell everybody else, you know, the thing about this business is it's actually it is scary because, you know, I've been really blessed for all the years that I've actually been able to do what I've been able to do. But this business is really weird. You know, every time I get done with a job, I'm like, that could have been my last. You never know, because that's just how this business goes, you know, and honestly, your reputation really is kind of like a lot of what you got in this business. You know, you have a good work ethic, you're fun to be around, you know, and it's your reputation, and that's all you got. But every day could be your last, and that's the truth. I
think so too, and you got to enjoy each day like if it's your last, because you don't know if you're promised the next day too. That's how I go by.
You never know, and that's the thing. So every day that I get a job or I get on a project, I always feel pretty excited about it. And so, you know, knock on wood, I've been lucky.
Yes. So what are some of your next projects you're going to be doing next? Do you have any other next projects?
I'm about to go work as a camera operator on a Ben Affleck film in the next month. I'm going to do that, and I'm also in the works now of getting ready to launch another directing feature based off a Vault comic book, but I can't talk about it right now because that's also under wraps. But I'm on it right now to do that. Working on this other idea that I have that I was talking about earlier. And a couple other things. There's another movie called The Culture that's I'm trying to get up and running to direct. So there's a couple things, you know. My whole thing is like you got to always have like fires burning and try to make sure that you have something going. And even when I get something locked in, I still keep the fire burning because it takes a snap of a finger for things to disappear and go away. Just, you know, it can go away easy. I've had projects where I was like, we're getting ready to go, and then we had a cast member like bail out because they got a better offer on some Marvel movie or something like that, and all of a sudden your whole project shuts down. So you never know, you know. So I still love camera operating. You know, my whole thing is when I'm like, even when I was on The Fall Guy in Australia, like I go work Monday through Friday. I go back to my apartment that I had, and I write and work on film ideas and send them out to my agents and things like that. And we just, always trying to keep it going. So I have the best of both worlds. I'm making health insurance, my retirement, and money doing a camera operator, but also developing. And then when I get to direct, I get to jump into that world, do that. And then when I'm done with the editing and all that, I get to go back to camera operating. So I just love every aspect of it. Because some people think I can only do this one job. I can only do, I'm going to be this person for life. It's like, no, man, you want to, you can go out and do whatever you want. You can do multiple careers. Don't limit yourself if you don't want to. That's my whole thing. I try to tell people that all the time. Have fun with your life. Do whatever you want.
I totally agree with you. That's actually pretty good advice. I mean, you got to live your life once, man, until where you're not happy anymore. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I still have the love of filmmaking. So it's that spark hasn't died out yet, and even in my getting older ages, I still am still every day on set, still an adventure, and get to see things that nobody else gets to. So I love it. Still love it.
Hey, like I said, good for you. Before we get off, one more last question. When you got into working as a camera operator, what was your first job as a camera operator? What was going through your mind at that time? And were you a little scared?
Of course I was scared. I was scared to death because I started out as a grip. I learned, and even then I was scared because I was learning all these new things I didn't know. People were calling me, junior and oh, how cute, the new grip, blah, blah, blah. And I was really young when I did it. And it was scary. And then when you finally got to the place where I was like, you know what? Now I'm comfortable being a grip. I wanted to move on and be a camera operator because I started pushing dollies with operators. And I was like, I love telling the story because as a grip, I started feeling like I wasn't a part of the process. I felt like when I go see a movie or see a TV show of something I worked on, all the hard work that I put into it didn't really portray, you don't really see that. So the whole thing because I came to LA to direct, and that was just the start of the job. But then I fell in love with the craft of operating because I worked with the dolly grip with the operators, learning how to tell the stories through the lens, when to do the moves, how complicated they are, booming up, booming down, all that stuff. So I said, you know what, I'm going to get into that. And then I saw the Steadicam, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever because the Steadicam is, was basically what Vasquez, was wearing in Aliens. It's the arm with, it's no gun on it. It's a camera, but it's the same. It's the vest with that weird arm, and you have the camera, and it floats through space, and and the camera's free to tell the stories. So I got into being a Steadicam operator, and I was never a first AC. I was never a second AC or a loader. So I just basically jumped from being a grip to being an operator. And so I was this kid that showed up on set, a really young operator, very green, very nervous. And I made mistakes, you know what I mean? But what I did to make the mistakes to learn was that I would go to film schools and film students that were trying to make their film projects. I basically would go to AFI or UCLA or USC, and I'd put up a thing with my number and saying, hey, Steadicam operator looking for work, for experience, here's my number. And so I got calls, and I learned by doing student films. And if I messed up there, it wasn't a big deal because everybody was messing up. And it was like, oh no, everyone's kind of learning and trying to figure it out. So that's where I kind of cut my teeth. So I learned how to do all the camera stuff on film student projects before I decided I was going to make the jump into bigger movies, because then I had made the mistakes and I've corrected them, and that way I wasn't going to make those mistakes anymore. And that's how I did it. And it took off from there. Then I reconnected with the directors of photography that I was a grip for and said, hey, if your normal guy isn't around, you want to give me a chance, give me a chance. And they did. That's how I got into it.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So where can everybody find you on social media to see what you're going to be doing next?
I'm on Instagram just under my name, BJ McDonnell. I'm on, I don't really, Facebook has gotten crazy. So I've tried, it's just too many people. And it's it's gone from the immediate friends to all of a sudden it's just tons of people. So I'm I have no idea who these people are anymore. So Instagram's a good place to follow. Twitter, I don't really go on much anymore unless I'm saying I'm doing this or that or proud of this project. But Instagram, I post a lot of pictures and do that. That's the easiest one.
All right. Thank you so much for coming out of your busy schedule to come on and talk with me tonight.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and everybody have a great night. Thank you.